From my tiny Brooklyn apartment, I transport friends and family to unexplored worlds, exotic adventures, and trips down the highways and byways of yesteryear. How can I accomplish such a feat on a minimal budget? Through the magic of an over-the-top tabletop. Hi, we're off for another adventure. Where are we headed to today? Let me give you some hints. It has to do with palm trees, pineapple, yummy drinks out of coconuts. Also with the first mate and his skipper too. And we're going to do our very best to make you comfortable in our tropic island nest. If that doesn't give you enough hints, how about this?
Just sit right back and hear a tale of a fateful trip that started from this tropic port aboard this tiny ship.
Come with us now. We're off for a 3-hour tour. The first episode aired on Saturday evening, September 26th of 1964 on CBS. It landed a prime 8:30 p.m. time slot among other CBS hits of the time. On the radio, the number one hit in the U.S. was Oh Pretty Woman by Roy Orbison and the Candymen, and number one in the U.K. was I'm Into Something Good by Herman's Hermits. There was a lot going on in the world that year, including the Warren Commission had presented its summary on their investigation into the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. There were race riots that were gripping the big cities. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 was signed into law. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. received the Nobel Peace Prize. The Beatles took America by storm when they appeared on The Ed Sullivan Show in February of 1964. Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton were married for the first time. Then, 6 months after Gilligan's premiere episode, President Johnson sent U.S. combat forces into battle in Vietnam in March of 1965. What were folks seeing at the movies in 1964? Well, there was a ton of hits that came out that year, but most notably, My Fair Lady, A Fistful of Dollars with Clint Eastwood, and one of Walt Disney's most beloved films, Mary Poppins. Gilligan's Island was not the only legend that was born in 1964. Also, it shares its birth date with such celebrities as Rob Lowe, Courtney Cox, Russell Crowe, Keanu Reeves, Nicolas Cage, Sandra Bullock, and the former First Lady, Michelle Obama. Talk about change. The cost of living has changed quite a bit since 1964 also. In New York City in 1964, the rent for a 2-bedroom apartment in a downtown neighborhood would run about $250 a month. I just looked this up last night. Same type of apartment in Manhattan today will run anywhere between $5,500 and $8,500. A two-way subway ticket was 15 cents. Now it's $2.75 both directions, and a gallon of milk was only 93 cents. 2 cans of Coca-Cola were 27 cents. A pack of cigarettes was $1.60. A brand new Ford Mustang was selling for $2,320. A loaf of bread was just 30 cents. A ticket to the movies was anywhere between $1.25 and $2. And a popular record album was about $6. A postage stamp in the U.S. was only 5 cents. So the Castaway's depiction on life on that desert isle wasn't as far-fetched as it seems through the lens of today's culture. Now, art imitates life, or so they say, and the world in 1964 was somewhat replicated by this hit show. Life may have been simpler and definitely cheaper, but there were always external threats and the occasional erupting volcano to shake the very surface of which they walked. Come to think of it, that's not too much different than today. Well, except for that Manhattan rent. The show was conceived and produced by the illustrious writer-producer Sherwood Schwartz, who later went to create The Brady Bunch. Now, there were only 3 seasons of Gilligan's Island, which seems amazing to me since there were 98 episodes and the show has just endured for so long. Now, if you recall, the first 36 episodes were in black and white. Now, there was nearly 30 guest stars that appeared during those 3 seasons, including some very recognizable names and faces during that time. Some of the guest stars included Zsa Zsa Gabor, Rory Calhoun, Don Rickles, Phil Silvers, and a very young Kurt Russell. The show was received well at the time, but was never awarded any Emmys. However, in later years, it received numerous pop culture awards, as well as awards and nominations from the TV Land Awards and the Off to TV Hall of Fame. Love it or hate it, the show's become a pop culture icon. The syndication of the show made it so much in demand that they created 3 television film sequels. In addition, The New Adventures of Gilligan was a Filmation-produced animated remake that aired on ABC on Saturday mornings from September 7th, 1974 to September 4th of 1977 for 24 episodes. Afterwards, there were many notable variants of the show that has borrowed or spoofed the name and theme throughout the years. And now, onto our Gilligan's Island tribute table. With this table, I thought it'd be fun to throw in a little cosplay and, a little bit of things you'd happen to find around Gilligan's Island itself. So I started out with that concept. Also, I wanted to look at the color palettes. Now, this color palette, really, there is no few colors you could choose. This show is one of those candy-colored comedies of the 1960s, so you can really go wild with all of the colors, and I used as many colors as I could possibly find. Now, the hardest thing I found about doing this table was, surprisingly, even with all the great Gilligan's Island merchandise there is out there, there's not a lot of things for tablescapes. So although I had fun shopping for some island tableware, I had to fall back on my philosophy that I stole from Patsy Cline and Loretta Lynn in the 1980 film Coal Miner's Daughter. What we can't buy, we'll make. What we can't make, we'll steal. So off I went to the dollar store. Hey, I'm not proud. And I found some great merchandise that I thought I could spruce up a little bit and really theme it towards Gilligan's Island. So I bought, and then I made, and I won't even tell you what I stole. And now we put it all together. And before you know it, we're on our tropic desert isle. Welcome to our own Gilligan's Island. Now, why has this series become so iconic? Why are we still talking about it 6 years later? And more importantly, why is a guy in his 50s doing a themed tribute table about it? Well, there are many philosophies out there. Is Gilligan's Island really very complex expose of emotions and psychological specimens of basic personality traits within humans? Is it an allegory of the 7 deadly sins? Or does it simply take us back to a simpler time of coming home from school, turning on Gilligan's Island, and eating a bowl of Count Chocula? Maybe it was the fantasy that we can just be anyone or anything on Gilligan's Island. We could even duplicate ourselves. Whatever the reason, I hope the show lingers in perpetuity in its pure and simplest form of entertainment.
Man, those 3-hour tours can be rough. I'll tell you, it's good to be back to civilization, so thank you for joining me. And join us here each week, my friends, here on Gilligan's Isle.
Thanks again for joining me today. Please join me in additional projects and invite your friends to join us too. The more, the merrier. There are links below, including to Over the Top Tabletop 101 and Essential Guide to the Basics. Remember, an Over the Top Tabletop project is a contest. Who has the most fun, your guests or you dreaming it up and putting it together? See you next time. Meanwhile, make something beautiful today and make beautiful memories for tomorrow. God bless.